America, it's time for some straight talk. You love your phone. Look at you. You hardly put it down. But you don't love that expensive wireless plan, do you? So what if I told you can keep that phone network and number 2 for a lot less? Well, this is me telling you. It's time to switch to Straight Talk, guys. Bring your own phone and get unlimited plans starting at just $45 a month on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
Here we are. We're back in Better Than Ever. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So much news out there, so much of it feeling unrelentingly bleak. And we're going to make it worse by bringing Stugotz into the conversation.
You know, when you're looking for perspective, when you have bad things going on and you really need someone to kind of tie it all together, you think it's Stugotz.
The last guy in the world you want is Stugotz,
well,
and yet that's what we're going to do in a minute. By the way, at this time tomorrow, we'll have Joey Galloway talking about Saquon Barkley, among other things. I just saw Mel's latest big board.
Right, yep.
Do you know who's number 1 on his big board?
I do not.
The number 1 on his big board
it's
is
going to
Sam
be
Darnold.
Which quarterback, yeah.
Sam Darnold is 1.
Sam Darnold just...
Saquon Barkley is 2. He has moved Saquon Barkley up to 2. So here, for what it's worth, here are his top 5 prospects. Number 1, Sam Darnold, quarterback, USC. Number 2, Saquon Barkley, running back, Penn State. Number 3, Josh Rosen, quarterback, UCLA. Number 4, Josh Allen, quarterback, Wyoming. And number 5, Derwin James, the defensive back from Florida State.
He's a really versatile player.
If you're wondering about other quarterbacks and people who root for quarterback-free teams,
the other 2 would be Baker Mayfield and Mason Rudolph.
Not Baker Mayfield. He's in the Heisman discussion, not in the big board discussion. Big board. Lamar Jackson is number 17 on Mel's big board, and Rudolph is number 25. So
Darnold's number 1. Darnold, listen, I like him as a quarterback. I don't like some of the decisions he's made throwing the ball into coverages when he could have checked down a little bit. These are things you can coach out of a guy through reps without a doubt. I like the way he throws the ball. I do like all the top 3 quarterbacks we keep talking about. I do like the way they throw it and their release. And they're all good-sized guys that can move around the pocket and throw on the run if they have to, but they can stand in the pocket and all whip the ball around. And Saquon Barkley deserves to be up there on the big board. But, again, there's the big board and then there's the reality of the draft on need. You know, you could – Saquon Barkley, I think, would be the best player in all of college football. But if you have a running back and you're picking high, it doesn't matter. You know, if you don't have a quarterback, you're going to take a quarterback. So It all comes down to that.
True of a quarterback, too. Let's bring Stugotz in on that topic. Stugotz, of course, in the Dan Le Batard Show every single day, following us coast to coast here on ESPN Radio. And those who know Stu know he is a Jet fan. And, Stu, I've got to give you credit because when you and I discussed this before last year's NFL draft, you were time and again saying, I want the Jets to take Deshaun Watson. I want the Jets to take Deshaun Watson over and over. And listen, 3 games is not enough to be making these decisions. But the way he played at Foxborough this past weekend, and we just showed this fantastic video of him giving his game check to these cafeteria employees in Houston who had been hit by Hurricane Harvey. I mean, he just seems to be a young man who gets it in every way that you can get it, and he looks like he's going. At least, the early signs are so positive on him as a player. What are your thoughts as you watch that kid through 3 games?
Incredible, Greeny. It's why I wanted him, Greeny, and I think you wanted him as well. We wanted. Listen, I've said it forever. Take the Jets. If you're the Jets, take a quarterback every single year in the draft until you get it right. It's the most important position in sports. Listen, you go up to Foxborough, you play the Patriots. That's normally a place where rookie quarterbacks go to die. Dan and I have talked about this week. Not Deshaun Watson, though. He played Brady right till the end, and if Bill O'Brien had enough guts to go for it on a 4th and 1 and put the Patriots away, they would have won that game. So how can you not be impressed with what Deshaun Watson has done early on in his career? And because listen, by everyone's account, I don't know him, guys. Obviously, I have no relationship with him whatsoever. But the people who do and study this for a living, they tell you that this kid is focused, he is responsible, he's in the film room all the time. So you have to think what you're seeing right now is just pure raw ability and talent. He's only going to get better as he gets more repetitions and gets more starts in the NFL. He's fantastic. He's fun to watch too.
May I just say on behalf of everyone in America, what the hell are you wearing?
Yeah.
Well, listen, your staff asked me to wear this. So this is my Zeke Elliott shirt. That's what it is. I wore this yesterday, and I apologize to America for seeing what they just saw. But your staff asked me to wear this. I had to wear this for 4 hours on the show yesterday. It's our grid of death. It's essentially a suicide pool. I had the Carolina Panthers. I lost. I had to pay off the bet. I had to wear this Zeke Elliott shirt. Now, I maintain Zeke has never worn a shirt that is this short, but I also maintain that Zeke is probably 5 to 10 pounds heavier than I am at this point.
And in way better shape. For those listening on radio.
I don't know, Mike. Have you seen him lately? I don't know if Zeke's in better shape than me right now.
Yeah,
I really don't. Have you seen the pictures?
Yes, I know. I've seen the pictures and heard the questions about that. But for those listening on radio, Stu has a Le Batard shirt on. It's a yellow shirt, and it is cut to, I'll say it, nipple height. I mean, it's just horrific is what it is.
Yes. It is. It is. But, Mike, at least give me credit for, listen, there's a bet, and there was a bet in place, and I honored that bet, and I did it very quickly. Listen, that's what we got to do, right?
Listen, you know how to pay off bets. You've been losing bets for years, so, I mean.
Yes, to you for years, yes.
I didn't hear that part of the show yesterday. The part I did hear makes me hesitant to ask you.
Oh, boy.
About Rick Pitino being fired, for all intents and purposes, fired by Louisville, because if anyone was listening to the Dan Le Batard show yesterday, I heard you guys with your take on it, but I'm sure some in our audience did not. So go ahead. What are your thoughts on what would appear to be the end of the career of a guy who was in the Basketball Hall of Fame and is inarguably one of the great coaches of all time?
Greeny, can you imagine the reaction that Rick Pitino had when he climbed out of his coffin a couple of nights ago and he heard all this news and everything that was going down? Can you imagine what the reaction was from Rick Pitino? Greeny, come on, I want to hear. Can you imagine? What was the reaction, Greeny? Can you imagine it?
The basic point of the show, for those of you who didn't hear it, is that you believe that Rick Pitino looks like a vampire, right? I mean,
Does he not? Does he not? I mean, Greeny, does he not look like a vampire? Come on. Listen, I know Rick Pitino's been on the show with you guys a bunch of times, but come on. He looks like a vampire. I mean, a close second place is the guy that learned underneath of Rick Pitino, and that's Billy Donovan. But Rick Pitino looks like, more so than anyone in the history of sports, looks like a vampire.
Where does one go?
Greeny, I want to hear you say it, Mike. I want to hear you say
listen,
it.
I
know
with
Golic
you.
agrees. I want to hear Greeny say it.
I agree with you. Yeah, he does. He does.
You mean like the old Dracula movies and stuff like that? Is that what we're talking about
I mean like a vampire. I mean like a guy that if he comes out during the day, he's going to burst into flames, and at night he is sucking the blood out of people's necks. That's what I'm talking about.
Put a cape on him, put some pointy teeth on him, and tell me you wouldn't have that. You would, right?
This is why I was going to regret asking the question in the first place. Do you have a take in the big picture, Stugotz?
I do, Greeny. I love how uncomfortable you are with everything that's going on this morning.
Yeah. Your nipples have thrown me off to begin with, and now it's only getting worse.
And my nipples apologize. I totally understand. I do. I totally understand. It's your staff. Blame Brooks and blame Thomas. But yes, I do have an actual take on Rick Pitino. Listen. Were you guys surprised by this news? Because I was not surprised by this news. All this did was confirm what I thought was going on in college athletics all along. So I am not surprised. I heard Dickie V on SportsCenter yesterday, and he was in tears, and he was very emotional. And I would tell Dick, and I understand it because he loves the game as much as anyone, but is Dick Vitale that naive to not think this stuff was going on? And I listened to your conversation with Pat Forty, and I've heard you guys talk the entire morning about this. Listen, here's what I'm tired of. I'm tired of people selling me on the idea that these guys are great mentors for the kids. Let me tell you something. If these guys weren't making $5, $6, $7, $8 million a year, do you think they'd honestly care about these kids? And Rick Pitino said he was completely shocked by the news. Rick Pitino, his entire career, has lived in a perpetual state of shock. The guy has no idea what's going on at his own program, no idea there are prostitutes in a dorm room right 5 minutes from where he lives, no idea that, assistants are going out and trying to get players and working with the shoe companies. Give me a break. Rick Pitino knows everything that's going on at that university, and Rick Pitino should never coach in college basketball again. And again, I am tired of the notion, the idea that these guys are great mentors for the kids. No, they are the worst possible mentors for many of these kids. I'm not saying all the coaches, but a lot of these coaches. And I'm interested to see where this thing goes and how many more people get named. And it is funny that there are other big-time coaches, Sean Miller in Arizona, other big programs in the middle of this, but we are all focused on Rick Pitino because I think this confirmed what we believed all along about Rick Pitino. I hope he never coaches again. And I think if college basketball wants to fix itself, guys, and it needs to, I care about the games. I care about March Madness, but I think a lot of people care about this thing getting fixed, college athletics getting fixed. There's no short-term fix here. I think you need to take a year off and figure out how to redo this, okay? Redo it and get it up to speed with 2017. Take an entire year off from the sport. Get someone who's in charge of college basketball, someone like Jay Billis, perhaps, who cares about it, who's a lawyer, who I think would do great things for the sport of college basketball. I think you got to take a year off and start this thing all over again.
So these coaches are going to get in trouble. They'll get maybe threatened with some jail time. Maybe they'll talk. Maybe we'll get other names out there, and then this will calm down. And then there's a thought it will start all over again because, as you said, yeah, should we be shocked by this? And I said no, absolutely not. So let me ask you this, Stu, because there might be apathy of where I'm going to go here. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try and fix things. But do you think the people who fill the arenas to watch basketball or the stadiums that watch the football teams, do you think the majority of them care about any of this?
No, they don't. I really, Mike, I think the majority of fans do not care about this. I think we care about it. I think people who really love college basketball care about it. I don't want to say all fans don't care about it. I think, there's a portion of the fan base that cares about it. But for the most part, I think many fans are like me. You'll watch a couple of games during the regular season, and then you'll get really fired up for March Madness because it's a lot of fun. It's 3 weeks. It's a 3-week sprint to a national championship, and you get games, on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's nonstop action, and I think that's what fans really care about. But if anyone is interested in doing this the right way and doing this above board and not underground, then take a year off and figure out how to do it the correct way. I don't like the shoe companies having deals with the universities. Listen, here's the deal. Just pay the kids. If a kid wants to wear Adidas while he's playing at UCLA, then let Adidas work out an individual contract with that kid so the kid can have money. I always go back to Michael Irvin telling me, hey, I'm at the University of Miami. I see how much money they're making off my jersey sales, how much money they're making off my name and my likeness, and I can't scratch $5 together to take a girl out on a date. That's ridiculous. And as long as you have a system in place where coaches are making $5, $6, $7, $8 million a year, they're going to do anything they can to hang on to those jobs. And that's really the problem with college basketball.
You going to yell at him? Because you always yell at me.
No, I don't yell at you. I say we can talk about solutions, but you and or Jay Billis want to open up the floodgates and said, make it the Wild Wild West, just let everything go. And I say, no, you got to have a conversation about what the next level is. You guys just want to take it too far at times. That's my point.
I don't even know how far I want to take it. I just know this isn't working.
No, I agree.
And it doesn't make sense. One of the reasons it isn't working is that it isn't logical. It's not a sensible system. I always apply Stugotz the parachute test, which is if you just parachuted in from somewhere else and you didn't know anything about this, and you sat down and we explained to you, this is how we have organized these college athletics and this is how we do it. A person who was never exposed to it would say, what are you, out of your mind? This is the dumbest system I've ever heard in my entire life. It doesn't make sense. It is obviously screaming to be corrupted. There's no reason to think it would work, and that's the reality of it. And it's found its way to that over decades and decades and decades of little adjustments and little loopholes and little changes. And maybe it made sense when they started it, maybe it didn't, but it definitely doesn't now. So how they need to change it, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know either. The only person who can answer that question is Stugotz. All right, Stu, next. Carmelo Anthony is on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Your reaction?
Greeny, it's funny, right? Because so much is going on off the field in sports. We haven't had time to get to this story. We could spend 2 days on Carmelo Anthony. This is really interesting. People are starting to write, articles about Carmelo. What was his legacy in New York? Listen, I can tell you his legacy in one word. 2 words, actually. It stunk, okay? That was the legacy. Carmelo made the Knicks. They could have been a good team. They got to the playoffs once the 4 years I think he was there, got knocked out in the first round. It could have been a good team. Carmelo forced his way on the Knicks. He could have just stayed in Denver, and the Knicks could have signed him in the offseason as a free agent, but he made the Knicks trade their entire organization to get Carmelo Anthony. And then once he got there, he did nothing in the way of attracting free agents. He didn't go out and try to recruit any of his friends to come to New York to play in Madison Square Garden. And I'm telling you right now, here's what's going to happen with Carmelo Anthony. Because, listen, I'm telling you guys, there's different levels of superstars in the NBA. You know this. There's Steph Curry. There's Kevin Durant. there's LeBron James. Carmelo Anthony is not there. If Carmelo Anthony is the best guy on your team's not going very far. But here's what's going to happen, Greeny. He's going to win and win big in Oklahoma City. Maybe make it to the Western Conference semifinals, even the Western Conference finals. They're not good enough to beat the Golden State Warriors. And we're going to start talking about what a great player Carmelo is again. We're going to start talking about how the Knicks wasted the Carmelo years. No, we're not. If Carmelo Anthony, the Knicks did none of those things, okay? If Carmelo Anthony, and he won't become a winner merely by playing in Oklahoma City, just because he gets to the Western Conference Finals. When they win, it will be because of Paul George and Russell Westbrook. Your team is a good team when Carmelo Anthony is the third best player on your team. When he's the best player on your team, just about every year, with the exception of one or two, is not a playoff team.
They did, for what it's worth. The Knicks did win one playoff series with Carmelo. They beat Boston, and then they wound up losing to Indiana. But that's
okay.
Your overriding point is. Well, I don't agree with it, but the rest of it was accurate.
But both of you are
in
agreement.
Hold on, Mike. Hold on a second. Do you feel like the Knicks wasted the Carmelo years? Don't you think Carmelo had something to do with them wasting the Carmelo years?
I think Carmelo Anthony is a flawed superstar, but I think the Knicks are a mess. They were a mess before he got there, and they're going to be a mess after he gets there. And Carmelo Anthony was the least of their problems.
What could they have done, though? Nobody wanted to go there.
The Knicks are bad from the top down, not from the bottom up. And this past year, the business with Phil Jackson deciding he was going to pick a fight with Carmelo Anthony publicly so that Carmelo would waive his no-trade clause, but what it actually wound up doing was forcing Carmelo to defend his own position, not do it just to spite him, and it drove down Carmelo's value, was actually idiotic. So I think Phil winds up getting a lot more blame for what has happened there than he does, and I think that the owner should get practically all of the blame for the fact that the Knicks have won one playoff series in the last 16 years. Almost none of that has anything to do with Carmelo Anthony.
All right, so I agree with you on Phil, and I agree with you on the owner, and it's a complete joke. But Golic brings up a good point. Who wanted to go play there? If Carmelo was a coveted player, someone that players wanted to play with, and you're playing in New York City, and you're playing at Madison Square Garden, you would think that some of these superstars, they all rush to go play with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and all those guys. They rush to play with LeBron James. They're now rushing to go play with Russell Westbrook. I didn't see anyone rushing to go play with Carmelo Anthony because they thought it would give them a good chance of winning an NBA championship. Carmelo has to shoulder some of the blame here, Greeny. He does. The best thing that ever happened to Carmelo, Greeny, it's a great point, is the fact that Phil Jackson came there and made such a mess of things we kind of forgot about just how bad Carmelo was in the 4 years he was there.
We could continue to debate this if you want to. Carmelo wasn't that bad. He was actually an MVP candidate the year that they made the playoffs and won a playoff series and all that. He had by far his best year. He's getting older, and injuries have been a problem. And, yes, he did not recruit other great players to go. Now, the players weren't flocking to Golden State either. They put that team together for the most part organically. The one guy who went there was Kevin Durant, and that obviously has shifted the entire balance of power in the entire sport. Wade and Carmelo Wade and LeBron and those guys, they've teamed up together, and Carmelo was not a part of that, and they didn't come to New York. That's accurate. He is a flawed superstar. He's not LeBron. He's not Kevin Durant. He's not Kawhi Leonard. I agree with that. But I think to discount everything that he has been as a player, in my personal opinion, is going too far.
Okay, listen, and you guys know the story that Carmelo, the original Big Three down here in Miami, and it speaks to just how badly Carmelo wants to win, or does he want to just be a guy that averages 25 points in a team that gets knocked out in the second round of the playoffs? The Big Three was supposed to be Carmelo, LeBron, and Dwayne Wade. Carmelo wanted nothing to do with it because he didn't want to leave any sort of money on the table, so he put money ahead of winning. So there's a lot of things to question about Carmelo Anthony.
All right, I know you want to ask us something, but let's get the beef stew first because it mentions Dwayne Wade. Do you have more beef with Dwayne Wade going to the Cavaliers or him passing on going back to the Heat?
I have a big issue with him going to the Cavaliers. I don't mind that he passed coming back down here to Miami, but he went to the one place where it hurts Miami the most, and he claims to love this city and this organization so much, and you really have to start to question whether he actually does or not. I don't mind that he didn't come back here. I'm not even certain Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, and the Miami Heat wanted Dwayne Wade down here because of what they put together here, and it might have been a scenario where Wade was coming off the bench down here. I just don't like the fact all of this stuff, to me, LeBron, Wade, all of it, feels calculated, it feels pre-planned, it feels orchestrated. We don't do much. You guys know our show. We don't do much in the way of I told you so. But I said a couple of years ago when he left, I said last year when he left to go to Chicago, this is just a little bit of a cushion that he's going to go. He couldn't go immediately from Miami to Cleveland because that would have set the fan base down here. I mean, they would have been irate with him. Okay, so he couldn't do it go directly from Miami to Cleveland. What he could do is go to a place like Chicago. They're going to be really bad. They were bad. And then Wade gets a buyout, and then he goes to the Cavaliers. And that softens the blow a little bit for Heat fans because he is now 2 years removed from playing down here in Miami. But the fact that he went to the one place, playing with the one guy that he knows would hurt this fan base and this city the most, to me, is just ridiculous. That's a bad job by Dwayne Wade. We would have been okay down here if he went to San Antonio, if he went to Oklahoma City, but he chose the one team and the one guy. And I do wonder, long term, if it will affect Dwayne's legacy down here in Miami. In fact, I think it probably will.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Stugotz on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. One last one for you. Hugh Hefner died. He was 91 years old and obviously one of the iconic figures in American society for any number of different reasons. And I see one of the questions here for you today is, if you could have lived anyone else's life, who would you have chosen?
Well, it's funny because I had this conversation with my friends last night, a few of my friends last night, and they asked me if somehow I could magically, once you're done with this life, if I could magically let you live someone else's life, whose life would you choose? And Hefner was certainly, and it was based on the passing of Hugh Hefner. Hef was certainly one of the guys that was in that conversation. Greeny, I have a pretty good idea. I have my guy. I think, Greeny, you'll probably think along the same lines as I do. Be interested to hear who Golic's going to choose. But, Greeny, I went with Jack Nicklaus. I love golf. You love golf. If I could live one person's life, I would live Jack Nicklaus's life. 6 ring coats, playing all the great courses. And he's had more success in his post-golf career than he had while he was playing golf in terms of finances, in terms of making money. So the guy's life that I would want to live is Jack Nicklaus.
You have someone, Golic?
Well, I mean, there's a few categories I would go with. I'd either want to be the fastest person in the world, the strongest person in the world, the best dancer in the world, or the best singer in the world. So those are my categories. So it's just a matter of who I would pick to go down that road. Because I really think I would want to be the greatest singer of all time. I think I would want to perform on stage.
Like literally that, like someone like Luciano Pavarotti or like Elvis Presley or
like entertainer,
Michael Jackson, someone like that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be bad.
I don't want to go opera.
I mean, to have those skills would be one thing, but he's talking about literally living someone else's experience.
I know. So that's what I'd like to be. It was just a matter of which person I would pick to change places with.
I think Arnold Palmer looks like he had more fun doing it than Jack Nicklaus did. Like, Nicklaus is historically, Stu, the greater player, but we're not talking about someone else's accomplishments. We're talking about living their life. And my sense is that I think Arnold Palmer, just from what I can tell, and what the heck do I know, he looks to me like he had more fun doing it than Jack did. That's just my guess. Jack seems so focused and driven all the time. Arnold Palmer just seemed to be kind of, out there with his iced tea and his lemonade, and he's just smoking his cigarette and he's playing his golf and he's having a good time.
You both would pick golfers.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. My fourth choice would be
absolutely.
Stugotz. My fourth choice would be Stugotz. I would like to have a 16 handicap and shoot an 81. I'd like that. That's what I'd like to do as regularly.
But you'd
as
also
possible.
be wearing a shirt like this, and you would have a stomach like this, Greeny. So I don't know. Be careful there with your decision. This is what you want to be. You want this, Greeny. You want this in all its glory.
If I was living Stugotz's life, the one thing I would do is I'd make sure no one ever saw my nipples again. It's
unreal. Thank God you don't have a nipple ring.
All right, Stu, well done. Stugotz, Dan Le Batard Show every single day. Follows us coast to coast here on ESPN Radio. What a piece of work that man is. I don't even know where to begin.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
It is Thursday, which means we have a game tonight, a good one, the renewal of the longest-standing rivalry in NFL history with the Bears and the Packers. But, of course, so much of the news around the sport right now is just that, news around the sport. And here's Adam Schefter in our studio, the best in the business. with insight. And it was interesting because when Schefter sat down, the first thing he said is, how crazy has this week been for you guys? And, it's been crazy for all of us in this business. You cover football. We cover all sports. That's what we do. We're even NCAA scandals that involve the FBI feel a lot more normal to us than monitoring the president's Twitter feed while we're on the air to see what it is he's going to tweet about pro football. What has this week been like for Adam Schefter?
It's strange. It's been very odd, very surreal. You don't know what's happening next. Usually in the football world that we're living in, an injury occurs, a team's going to sign a play. You see where things are going. We have no idea where any of this is going right now. We hope in a positive direction, but there are so many different schools of thought. Eric Reed wrote a great op-ed column in the New York Times. For those who missed it, I posted on my Twitter timeline this morning, laying out exactly why he and Colin Kaepernick and many others kneel and what it stands for. And I think it was a really good explanation because I think some people lose sight of that right now. But it's strange to think where it's going. And the other thing that struck me is last week when teams were having their team meetings on Saturday nights and speaking to some of the organizations, they were amazed, taken aback at how some of those team meetings turned into what they called town hall-like meetings. All of a sudden, what you think is going to be something simple turns into hours of heated discussion with viewpoints from all sides.
So for the league and the players and the popularity, through 3 weeks, viewership for nationally telecast NFL games is down 11% year to year, from average of 17.6 million viewers to 15.6.
So what does that say to you guys?
Well, listen, I think they're – all right, you have a product that's loved. You have something controversial that went on. It's not going to make the group you already have watching watch more. It's going to take some people away. So it's not surprising to me it's taking – now they're saying last year because of the election. This year, some are saying because of all the horrific Mother Nature catastrophes that have gone on.
That was week one.
But, so I don't think there's any doubt that we see people burning their season tickets, that it's having an effect. You have this monstrous crowd, and then you do something that some feel is divisive, and some people don't like it, so they step away.
On both sides, too, it should be pointed out. There are people protesting or boycotting the league because Kaepernick isn't in it.
Playing. So that's the next question. It always is the question. There's the where does it go with what they're protesting about, because unfortunately, it seems like we lose sight of that a bit. And then where does it go for the popularity of the league and what the NFL is going to do?
But let me ask you this, Greeny. Do you think the ratings are down solely because of this issue? We bring up the hurricane. Okay, that's a factor. Absolutely. Right. Week one. This issue this past week. Is it that, or is that people's viewing habits are changing and this was going to happen anyway? Is this the result of what we saw over the last week with the national discourse going in ways that we never would have imagined, or is this because this was inevitable and was going to happen anyway?
The answer to your question, first and foremost, obviously, is I don't know with certainty. My gut inclination is to say both are true, which is that I think that the numbers were going to start to go down anyway because of people's television viewing habits, because of the way things have changed. I mean, I have teenagers. You do too. So you know that younger people are consuming things in totally different ways, and that was always going to have an impact here. Do I think that this piece of it is also a factor in that? Yes. Now, how much of a factor, I don't know. Yeah. The most direct cause and effect that we might be able to see immediately, and I don't know if we have any numbers on this yet, I haven't seen them, is how many people are taking DirecTV up on their offer to get their money back on their Sunday ticket package. That, it would seem to me, to be an obvious direct effect of what is going on. And if that turns out to be hundreds of people, then that's one thing. And if it turns out to be, tens of thousands of people, then something else.
So if this issue, because of the 11% we said down, I don't know what the exact number is because of this issue of that percentage, but I do believe that there's a number of the 11%. It's because of this issue. So where does this part of it go? You hear the president saying they need to change the rule. I don't see them changing the rule unless it does start costing you money. So where's that leveling point for the NFL?
Change the rule, meaning that you're mandating that all players and teams must be out on the field and
standing
doing a certain thing.
Just like the NBA does. Just like the NBA does. They have a rule. You have to stand face the flag. They have an absolute rule.
Now, they didn't put that in the face of all of
No,
this.
they did
no
not.
No one paid a whole lot of attention to it.
Exactly right.
And they're so progressive and their players are so outspoken in different ways. But President Trump actually yesterday said the NFL is in a very bad box. And in one level, I actually agree with that, which is that if it does get to a point where this becomes such a concern financially that they feel they do need to institute some sort of rule, I think there will be something bordering on a revolt in the other direction, which is to say people will be extraordinarily upset and will start boycotting for that reason in greater numbers than they have been because Kaepernick doesn't have a job. So I do believe they are in a very – I don't know what they want to do, but I think if you just look at it from a gauging public sentiment standpoint, I think they're in a very tricky position.
Well, I don't know what they do. It's interesting because, again, the league faces various crises all the time. This feels different than any other. Like, there are certain storylines that shadow and color the entire season. Like, we had Bountygate and Deflategate and domestic violence. But this one just seems odd. Like, the domestic violence one had its own feel. This is an entirely different field.
So I go back to Golic's question. Like, what are you hearing from people inside? You talk to so many people that we don't, and I'm not asking you to betray any confidences, but the general sentiment that you are hearing from inside the league office and from teams and from players, what sorts of things are you hearing?
The opinions are so all over the place, and it depends on who you speak to. Everyone's got a different stance. So on the phone yesterday with a team that's dealing with all this, and they're trying to get a handle on what the best thing to do. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers last week.
That's the
as an
example.
That's the greatest example because of so many different things that happen and some regrets that have been expressed since that particular moment. The league has been very open and very forthright and tried to be transparent about its views, but they have not expressed concern about this, not publicly. I don't know where this all goes. I don't know about being in that box. I don't know what they do about this. I don't know. I'm curious like everybody else.
It is. That seems to be the overlying sentiment is we don't know. We don't even know, how many will again take a knee for this national anthem. It's going to be really interesting to see where this thing goes.
Schefter's here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. We will go on the field.
Yes.
And again, a week, I said it to him. I said this on the air. Whatever day it was, what was the day that the president was tweeting while we were on? Was that Tuesday?
Monday
or Tuesday?
I think it was Tuesday after
the Monday night game.
Yeah.
So Tuesday morning, I said on the air, I am accustomed to sitting here saying I must be glued to Adam Schefter's Twitter feed during our show because there's news breaking. I've never said I need to be glued to the president's Twitter feed, but that day there were 3 tweets in a span of like 19 minutes.
And nothing today?
That we had to read.
From the president?
I haven't seen anything on this today, but I'll
really
check.
Look.
I would think that there are other things like tax reform issues and
it's a lot of people
Puerto Rico.
And
let me go
what
see.
do I know?
I'm going to give you guys the option because Schefter asked me to check and see if there were any presidential tweets from the president about the NFL, and there have not been today. But there is a story. He gave an interview to Fox News, which was taped yesterday, which aired this morning. Do you want to hear it, or do you want me to ask you about the Bears and the Packers?
Whatever you want to do. It's your show.
No, Mike, what should I do?
Let's go on the field.
Okay, let's go
we'll
on the
save
field.
it.
All right, fair enough. Bears-Packers tonight. Longest-standing rivalry in the history of the NFL. Interesting storylines there. We got the fans being asked to all lock arms before the game starts. You got the Bears. When will Mitchell Trubisky get on the field? They win a big game last week. They got a nice two-headed monster running back kind of situation. What is your take right now?
Okay, first of all, did you see the numbers on this? This is unbelievable. Okay, this is the 195th time these two teams are playing. 194 prior games. They are tied 94, and 6. And the point difference in those 194 games is 4 points.
It's stunning. It is
4
really
points.
stunning.
The Packers have scored 3,335 points. The Bears 3,331.
It's incredible.
I don't know. Just in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything, but it's interesting. And
I think
my
it's
attention.
Incredibly interesting. Now, unfortunately for this current, and when I mean current, I mean, the Bears in the last few years, they're 4-15 against Aaron Rodgers. So it hasn't, and they've used 4 starting quarterbacks in the last 4 games against Green Bay. But, we know what Green Bay is. You hope we're waiting to hear about the tackles, the offensive tackles, the Mike Daniels.
That to me is fascinating too, because the Packers are down 5, their top 5 offensive tackles. They're gone. Basically, David Bakhtiari, Brian Bulaga, both doubtful tonight, which means they're probably not going to play.
Probably because you do have the 10 days on the other side. So if you were iffy right now, this is a game you kind of say, do I just sit him? And then I got 10 more days to try and heal.
Packers put a rookie offensive tackle on IR yesterday. Jason Spriggs was already on IR. Don Barkley already on IR. So it leaves you two guys, Adam Pankey, an undrafted free agent rookie, and Justin McCray starting at the offensive tackle position tonight against a very good Bears defense. So that creates something where Aaron Rodgers is going to be on the run a bunch tonight, getting rid of the football quickly, not going to have a lot of time. But any team that would be losing its top 5 offensive tackles creates a lot of challenge.
For those reasons and others, I like Detroit to win that division now. I'm a believer in Detroit. And just on that quickly, the way that game ended this past weekend, which we understand the rule, and the rule was applied correctly. But I've heard a lot of people saying they need to look into that rule because ultimately the play takes place because the officials, in theory, make the wrong call, right? They call it a touchdown, and if they don't call it a touchdown, technically the Lions have 8 seconds to run up there and try and get another playoff. They probably can't do it, but the point is it is initiated by the officials making a call which is overturned, which leads to the 10-second runoff. Have you heard any talk about that rule?
But they enacted the rule to combat that when they instituted the 10-second runoff because they didn't want to have that team have extra time. So the rule was recently changed not that long ago.
Right.
So I don't know what they do to get it right. To me, they did get it right. Is odd as it seemed and as strange as it looked like a touch. I still have not seen the replay where Golden Tate definitively gets touched. I guess
I saw it.
Yeah, he did.
He was touched.
I think the knee was on the ground
call.
and the hand was on his shoulder. So I do.
But it's
think
a terrible way for a game to end.
Yeah, a ref explaining why a game is over and there's still time on the clock is got to be.
They're celebrating, and not only are they not winning, but it's over. Yeah. It's over the other way.
How about 2 of the 3 Falcons wins? The Falcons are one of 2 unbeatens in the league. I mean, the Bears dropped 2 touchdowns that would have beaten them, and then this thing winds up happening, so it's crazy. Quickly, go ahead, Mike, quarterbacks.
Along that lines, Greeny thinks Detroit can win that division, and I like they're pretty balanced now, actually, with running and passing. How about with Minnesota now? It's like we talk about Andrew Luck every week. Now we're talking about Sam Bradford. Is he or isn't he? So what is that now? Case Keenum, 369 and 3 touchdowns. You're certainly not going to expect that every week out of him. But what's going on with Bradford?
Case Keenum's 3-0 against the Bucs the last 3 years. He's beaten him each of the last 3 years. He's a Buck killer. Sam Bradford went down to visit Dr. James Andrews. No structural damage. Doesn't need surgery. That's the good news. Needed time off his feet. Didn't go to the game last week. I think there's a situation here where it won't surprise me if he doesn't play this week. I don't think he'll play this week. And then I think he's back in play starting next week, depending on how much progress that knee shows. I think that they're encouraged that he'll be back sooner rather than later, but I do think he's going to miss a little bit more time here.
And Andrew Luck, there was talk he was going to practice this week, then he didn't. Where do we stand
now
with
they
that?
think he'll practice next week, and I think really the clock starts on him from the time he starts practicing in the sense that they always felt it was going to take 2 to 3 weeks once he started practicing before they put him out there in a game, and they're not going to put him out there before he's ready. I think Week 7 has always been the week that has been circled on the calendar here, and I think once again that remains the case. If he comes back and practices next week, I think we're looking at Week 7 on Andrew Luck.
And then Odell Beckham meeting with the ownership. Basically, he's going to get fined. That's going to be it, right, from the league?
Well, again, I would expect the league to fine him. He has been fined for this sort of act, a different celebration in the past. If it's a second act, it's a $24,300 fine.
What do you make of the whole
not
thing?
$7,500 for leaving your shirt untucked, but $24,309 is not cheap anyway.
I mean, if you watched that game, which I did, the kid is so good. I mean, it's just ridiculous how different they are when he's involved. And yet you have this sort of business. Is there any question but that the Giants this offseason will sign him to a monster contract?
No. To me, look, in this particular case, he's not confirmed this, but we think it was a reaction to the president's comments.
Maybe
SOBs.
He didn't seem to say that initially, and then it was brought up to him. And
so it sounded
good. I don't really know one way or the other.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
You don't think so, huh?
No.
I do.
Whether it is or it isn't, there are a lot of different ways to react to not liking something that the president said. I'm not sure mimicking a dog peeing on the field is one.
First of all, he's done nothing wrong. He's done nothing illegal. He's not in trouble, and he's a transcendent player.
Correct.
Exactly right.
So they're not letting him go anywhere.
That adds up to $100 million in the offseason.
Whatever the number is, there are so many wide receivers that are going to be getting new contracts. He's at the top of the list.
Absolutely.
He is Adam Schefter, and, of course, he is a must-follow at all times. Get yourself some almonds. Back in a minute. Mike and Mike.